Thank you very much for listening to this week's talk on the Sedra of Ekev. And we're dedicating our learning to the safe and speedy release of all of the hostages in Gaza and the safety and success and continued strength of all of the soldiers in the IDF. And as we're looking at this week's Sedra called Ekev, and we're pondering this word Ekev and the contents of this Sedra and its eternal relevance, speaking to us so so up to the moment, everything that we're needing to hear. And the word Akev, that which we will not spend too long on, I often promise that, but we can get stuck on the first word for the entire talk. It means, literally translated, heal, although just to make sense of in the context, it is understood as because. And the Sedra begins, and this is chapter 7, verse 12. V'haya Ekev tishmon el hamishpatim ha'ela u'shamartim v'asisem osam. And it will happen as a result of your listening to, this is translated by the Gutnick Chumash, the laws and these laws, and you're guarding them and performing them. V'shamar Hashem Elokecha lecha es habris es hachesed asher nishba la'avosecha. And God will keep his promise to you, the covenant and the kindness that he swore to your fathers. And this is something that we tune into, we tap into as we are navigating the current events, understanding that this is our background, this is our historical connection, and this is perpetual. And the word Akev as heal, because that's the literal translation, and the commentators understand that it's used in this context because Rashi tells us that it is applying to the mitzvahs that we might tread on with our heels. We might think that certain mitzvahs are less important, so we don't have to observe them so fully. We'll work out what we think is as an important mitzvah, what will have a serious reward, a significant reward, and those mitzvahs we'll keep, but the others we won't keep. But we have been told in many contexts and different ways that each one of the 613 is a connecting link from Hashem to us and back again. And it is not for us to make that calculation. As far as we're concerned, they're all of equal importance. So we're being warned not to have this list in our heads of more important and less important, those that I will be careful about and those that I will not be careful about. And I think that this is also going to link up with the idea of geography, destiny, and sandwiches that come in this week's Sedra, because sometimes those mitzvahs, either because we do them on a regular daily basis perhaps, and we can get lulled into almost completely disconnected or without any focus and concentration, something that you do once a year, perhaps you lead up to, whether it's the Yom Kippur davening and we build up to that and it's a wow occasion, but something that we're doing on a daily basis, something that we have an opportunity to do, that we are blessed to have this opportunity on a daily basis. We might get lazy, bored with it, and therein lies the challenge, therein lies the solution and a most incredible way to keep our levels of commitment and excitement ever growing. So just beginning with this idea, on the one hand, Akev, we've got this concept that it's something that we might tread on, not pay too much attention to. In a completely different direction, it's been pointed out that the heel is actually the anchor, is the stabilizing point. As we are Homo sapiens, we're upright, we are walking, as we touch the ground with our heel, our body is anchoring you could say, our higher spiritual content, our physical body, as it comes into contact with the ground, the heel is that point of contact, and really is serving quite an elevated, for all of its the fact that it is lowly in position, it is actually serving a very elevated function in doing that. And there's also another use of the word that we find it ikvasa de Mashiach, which again, using the root, this word Ekev, which means the footsteps of Moshiach. And that's often understood, again, in a negative way, that in the times preceding the coming of the Moshiach, these are the times that we find ourselves in now, and that can still, even though we are drawing towards that, we are not at this point aware of the exact time schedule. This is Hashem's timing, and whatever impact we can make on that timing, that's another story. But we, as we are drawing towards the coming of the Moshiach, there are certain negative behavior patterns that are observed across the whole of society, that there is a Gemara that is very often describing the world today as we see it, an increase in chutzpah, in audacity, in lack of respect for elders, lack of respect for leaders, leaders who don't lead, but they actually follow. They're like a dog that's running ahead, and it's connected by its lead to its master, and it looks like the dog is leading, but actually the dog is being controlled by its master, and the leaders of today are compared to that dog. And we can see so often evil policies around the world that are being pursued, and these leaders will often clandestinely admit that they are following public opinion, that they dare not speak up for the truth. We see it happening in their support for a violent terrorist group, and acting as a propaganda tool for this group, and we can see that they are just following public opinion, they're chasing the votes, and unfortunately that is determining the stand that they take on many policies. So these are, again, connected to the word heel as we live it today. But later on in the Sedra, we have descriptions of the land of Israel. Again, Moshe Rabbeinu is continuing his address, looking out at the beloved promised land and describing it. And we see the geography of the land of Israel described in chapter 8, verse 7. And the Pasuk says, Ki Hashem Elohecha meviacha el eretz tova, because God, Hashem, your God, is bringing you to a good land. Eretz nachale mayim, a land of brooks of water, ayonos usahomos, springs and underground water flows, yotzim babika ovahar, flowing into valleys and into mountains, describing the topography of the land of Israel, thinking of the beautiful north of Israel, where you have these springs and natural pools of water. Eretz chita usara v'gefen us'eno v'rimon, the famous posuk describing the 7 species, a land of wheat and barley and vine and fig and pomegranate. Eretz zeis shemen udavosh, a land of oil producing olives and honey. Eretz asher lo b'miskenos tochal ba, a land in which you would eat bread without poverty. Lechem lo sechsa, you will not lack bread. You will not lo sechsa kolbo, you will not lack anything in it. And then we have the famous posuk that gives us the requirement of benching, v'achalta v'savata uverachta es Adonai Elohecha, and you will eat, you will be satisfied, and you will bless the Lord your God, al ha'aretz hatova asher nosan loch, for the land, the good land that he has given to you. And this here we have, at the moment, we've got the geography. and we'll leave the sandwiches for the end. I'm sorry if you're very hungry. And we'll go now to destiny, because later on in this week's Sedra, we have the second paragraph of Shema, and that is in chapter 11, verse 13. And our destiny is clearly spelt out in this second paragraph that we recite in the morning prayers, in the evening prayers. And it tells us that if we listen, if we follow the mitzvahs, if we follow and Hashem's commands, V'haya im shema tishma mitzvasai asher anochi mitzaveh eschem hayom, and it will be if you surely listen to my commandments that I am commanding you today, La'ava es Adonai Elehechem, to love the Lord your God, u'la'avdo b'chol levavechem u'b'chol nafshechem, and to serve him with all your heart and with all your soul. Then v'nosati matar artzachem be'ito yore u'malkosh, and I will give the early and the late rains of your land at their proper time, and you will gather in your grain and wine and oil. So if we will follow, listen, obey the mitzvahs and the commands, we are going to be given material prosperity. And this concept of reward and punishment, schar va'onesh, the reward that we get from observing the mitzvahs, even though the reward truly is the performance of the mitzvah itself. But the Torah is telling us that we will enjoy the material benefits. And in an interesting article on geography and destiny in Covenant and Conversation by Rabbi Sachs, Rabbi Sachs quotes the Kuzari, that's Rabbi Yehuda Halevi, who writes the following about the land of Israel, and I'm going to read it. This is from the Kuzari, chapter 1, paragraph 109. Its fertility or barrenness, its happiness or misfortune depend upon the divine influence which your conduct will merit, whilst the rest of the world will continue its natural course. For if the divine presence is among you, you will perceive by the fertility of your country, by the regularity with which your rainfalls appear in their due seasons, by your victories over your enemies, in spite of your inferior numbers, that your affairs are not managed by simple laws of nature, but by the divine will. You will also see that drought, death, and wild beasts pursue you as a result of disobedience, although the whole world lives in peace. This shows you that your concerns are arranged by a higher power than mere nature. And this is telling us the truth as we live it, that we are not clearly like the other nations of the world. This is not an arrogant statement. This is just an observation that what happens to us makes no sense on a purely logical basis in terms of the fact that we've survived after all the years of persecution, the fact that we are that we are judged in a certain way, that we need to behave in a certain way. And really our strength, our resilience, and although we have to live, and the climate and of the land of Israel, which is connected obviously to its geography as well, that we have to look heavenwards, not like Egypt, which is watered by the Nile. But as we look heavenwards, we need to connect to Hashem, and that determines how we are going to live. And it is this is our destiny. And it's not that we need to manage uncertainty. We need to understand that we have certainty. That certainty is our belief in Hashem and our following of the mitzvahs. And we understand that on the physical level, and as we're living throughout the times and challenges that we have now, there is huge amounts of uncertainty, and humans crave certainty. Yet we need to peel away those layers and understand that the only certainty is our belief in Hashem and our following of the mitzvahs and watching the prophecies that are so against the laws of nature, whether it's the events that we've witnessed over the past few months, what happened with Iran and various other aspects, even though we're still navigating challenges. But just to understand that our certainty is the reality of living our lives in Hashem's embrace. So how do we connect that? How do we connect the geography of Israel, the destiny of Israel, and get to these very high levels? So I think sandwiches give us the answer. And sandwiches are, as I read earlier, the commandment for saying what we call benching grace after meals, that when we are blessed to have our daily bread, we say Hamotzi lechem min haaretz, who brings forth bread from the land. And this was modeled, if you like, on the original blessing that was given when the children of Israel ate a diet of man in the wilderness, and that was Hamotzi lechem min hashamayim, who brings forth bread from the heavens. And the miracle of the bread that we have, the food that we are blessed with, the no people. This is not the Jewish way of dealing with things that would cause hunger, the accusations against the land of Israel, the people of Israel, that they are deliberately starving another nation. This is a tragic outcome of a war and a deliberate tactic of a terrorist enemy that uses and weaponizes its own people. The gratitude that we express on a daily basis for the blessing of bread, the understanding that whatever wisdom we have, whatever husbandry and amazing crops and agriculture and drip irrigation, all of the wonderful human inventions, that when we take that mouthful of bread and we savor it, we acknowledge that all our blessings come from Hashem, and we don't have to wait for a spectacular once in a lifetime miracle. We don't have to have a once a year festival that focuses our attention. This is our challenge. This is our gift. This is the message in our sandwiches in this week's Sedra, to really treasure the opportunity to connect to Hashem when we put that mouthful of bread in our mouth, to say the blessing before it, to say the blessings after it, and with the text that has been put together by our rabbis. And in this way, we are able to tune into the eternal promises of the Torah, that please God, we live now, that we are blessed in so many ways, as we are able to celebrate and perform mitzvahs in the land of Israel, that we are able to live as Jewish people in the land of Israel, to value that, to treasure that, and to bring it into our daily lives with our sandwiches. And please God, we should merit to see all of the prophecies and all of the heartfelt words in this week's Sedra and the whole book of Devarim that are being delivered to us by Moshe Rabbeinu. And in this way, we will all have the merit to go towards the month of Elul, to go towards Rosh Hashanah, and see, please God, the coming of Moshiach speedily and in our time. Thank you very much for listening. Wishing everybody Shabbat Shalom.